Well, today we have on Mr. Frank Levering. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And I'm listening to that wind howling, which is the way it was back in 1912,
Yeah,
the day of the shootout. Everybody talked about the wind
really.
whistling, kind of like
Really?
that. And y'all have just been to the top of the
Yes,
sir.
we did.
top of the courthouse, and did it scare the H out of you?
No, it was too pretty. It was beautiful.
It was pretty.
We've looked at it all of our lives,
Yeah.
but we never had a chance to actually go up
We
there.
run by it every day during cross-country
Yeah.
track practice, and
It was neat. And
See
the,
it.
the room we're actually in now is the old legal library.
yeah,
Yeah.
And it's absolutely amazing. I mean, the books, there's thousands of books in here for the listener. It's really beautiful. But it's an honor to have you on today.
Yeah.
I've
Honored to be here.
Well, thank
Thank you, yeah.
I've seen the courthouse play a few years ago,
Okay.
and it's a great play for anybody to come out to listen to or
Thank you.
to watch it. We kind of want to hit a little bit of your personal life before we go into the play. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Orchard Gap, which is in Carroll County, right off the Parkway. You go down the Orchard Gap Road for 2 miles off the Parkway, and that's where I was raised.
yeah.
Did you go to Carroll County High School or?
My mother was teaching at that time at Mount Airy High School.
Right.
So I wound up, instead of coming up here, in those days it was Hillsville High School.
Right.
So I would ride with her every day until I had my own 1948 Chevy, and I started driving that my junior year. And but I'm a Carroll County guy. I consider this to be my home.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As do we.
We know that you're farming or you're raising cherries now. Did your father farm?
He did, and his father before him. The orchard has been around since 1908.
Wow.
When my grandparents came in a horse and wagon all the way from East Tennessee, and my grandfather had been looking for a good place to start an apple orchard, and he bought the land where I now live from an old guy who had actually fought in the Civil War, and he lived in a 2-room log cabin, and my grandparents moved into that cabin after they bought the place, and my dad was born in that cabin, delivered by a legendary doctor here in Carroll County named Doc Branscombe.
Okay.
Okay.
And Doc Branscombe would ride a horse for miles. He lived in Fancy Gap and deliver a baby.
Did he have an office down above the Foothills shoe store down here?
Probably.
I think
Okay.
so.
Probably did.
I think I know who you're talking about. He lived to be what, 105
He
or
did.
something?
He did. Absolute legend.
Yeah.
And once got into almost got into a fight with Floyd Allen because Floyd threatened him about something. And Doc Branscombe, the story goes, stood up to Floyd Allen, and there was no fight.
Right.
So we were talking to Mr. Harmon before you got here. He talked about your father meeting JFK. He told us to ask you about that. Could you go into that a little bit?
Oh yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah.
Dad was a Quaker. I don't know if y'all know much about Quakers.
Yes, sir.
You do? Okay, wow. I never knew until a couple years ago that until about 1820, 1/3 of Carroll County the population were Quakers.
Really?
1/3.
That's a lot.
And there were Quakers right here in Hillsville. And from what I understand, this land that's now the town of Hillsville was owned by Quakers, or so I've been told. So anyway, Dad went with a couple other Quakers to see President Kennedy in the White House, and they were talking about sending food to communist China because there were a lot of people starving. This was 1962, and they were scheduled for 15 minutes with in the Oval Office with Kennedy, and they got to talking, and for the first almost 10 minutes, President Kennedy did all the talking, and he was talking about his accomplishments.
Right.
And Dad was famous for carrying this old pocket watch, this $4 pocket watch, that he carried around. He pulled out his pocket watch and he said, "Mr. President, we've only got 5 more minutes. Maybe we should do a little bit of the talking." And he said President Kennedy looked at him and then he grinned. President Kennedy grinned at him and said, "Go ahead, Mr. Levering." And he extended the visit to a half hour. So they had 20 minutes to make their case for sending food to starving people.
Wow, that's an amazing
Awesome
story.
story, man.
Yeah.
Not many people get to do that. So, especially for so much of a great historical figure
Right.
as JFK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you consider farming before leaving school?
Yeah. What I wanted to do was combine farming and writing.
Okay.
And I've had 2 careers, basically. I've been a writer. I've published 9 books, wrote a movie with Demi Moore, a horror movie called Parasite. Had a period in Hollywood for 7 years. Worked for a lot of producers and directors. And then I started writing books, and that was back in around 1990. And I wrote a best-selling book that was a national bestseller. I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show and different shows. Called Simple Living, and a lot of that is about Carroll County, about living in Carroll County.
Where did you go immediately after high school?
So I had what amounted to a football scholarship. I played football at Mount Airy High School, and we won a state championship. And I was recruited to a small college up in Connecticut called Wesleyan University.
Right. Okay.
And it's a small liberal arts school.
Yeah.
And during my football days at Wesleyan, I played alongside a guy you may know named Bill Belichick.
Yes, sir.
And he was my teammate for a couple of years. So I got to know him. It's hard to believe now when you look at him, but Bill, back in those days, had what they call a Prince Val haircut with cropped short across his forehead, but going down to his shoulders in the back. It's hard to imagine.
Kind of like a mullet.
Yeah, like a mullet. Yeah. And he was a real quiet guy, absolutely brilliant guy. He was really doing probably more coaching than the coaches were.
Yeah.
So, and Wesleyan was a good school. It was at that time it was ranked #1 for small liberal arts colleges in the country academically.
What did you study?
I studied history and English.
Okay. Was that a double major?
Double major. Yeah.
Did you consider going to grad school after you graduated?
I did, and I went to Harvard Divinity School.
Really? Wow. Okay.
I have a degree from Harvard Divinity.
Wow.
In theology, and never did anything with it. I decided I was going to try to be a writer at that point. I was, I guess, 25 maybe when I got out of Divinity School, and I got in an old Pontiac that had a Carroll County Farm Bureau sticker on it saying, "I am proud to be a farmer."
Yeah.
And I drove that old Pontiac out to Hollywood and got a job with, I was lucky, I got a job with Ralph Waite, who's, you ever seen the Waltons, the TV show? Well, that was really big at the time. And the guy who played Paul Walton, the father, not the grandfather, was my boss for about 6 months. I wrote a screenplay for him.
Wow.
That was my first job.
That's quite the first job.
Yeah.
To look back to grad school, what was that process of going through a divinity degree like? Was it a master's in divinity?
It was.
What was your coursework like? What kind of requirements did you have? Did you have a component outside of the classroom that you had to fulfill, like outside of your classes? Did you have to have an ecclesiastical endorsement? What was that process like?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, Harvard at the time was pretty relaxed about those kinds of things. You didn't have to be have any ecclesiastical affiliation. It was really an academic kind of experience, and not really that particular program at Harvard, and not something that was designed to make a preacher out of you.
Okay. Yeah.
There were other programs there where you would become a minister.
Yeah.
But I was in the let's study religion, you know, from an academic standpoint.
Right.
That was the program I was in, and I had some great teachers. One of the great theologians of our time, really. I took a couple classes with him. A fellow named Richard Niebuhr, who's famous as a theologian, and another very famous theologian named Harvey Cox.
Okay.
I studied with him.
Did you study any Jonathan Edwards?
I did. I did. Actually, I'd studied Jonathan Edwards in college.
Really? Okay.
You know Jonathan Edwards?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
No kidding.
I'm
Wow.
a fan. So yeah.
That's Wonderful.
I've read Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. I believe Luke has
I
too.
have read it
yeah.
too.
No kidding. Wow.
So-
Now, how many people in Carroll County know Jonathan Edwards?
Probably not a lot.
Probably not too many.
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a fan of theology, but yeah, I was just curious what the process was like. Did you have to do a thesis or a dissertation at the end of your course?
Luckily not. I did it in college, and once was enough. That was writing a
Once
thesis
was
one
enough.
time was
Yeah.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said that you went out and you started writing in Hollywood almost immediately upon getting there.
Uh-huh.
Did you already have a portfolio at that point? Did you write for your school or try to publish some short stories or anything before you went to Hollywood?
I did a lot of writing in college. I was they had a thing called the Connecticut Student Poets,
Okay.
and I was one of 4 who went around and read poetry. I was the Wesleyan student poet, and had some interesting experiences. There was a fancy girls' school called the Miss Porter School in Connecticut. It was all girls, and Jacqueline Kennedy had gone there.
Wow. Okay.
And it's what they used to be called a finishing school. You know, you would make young women, you know, ready to be in the world. And so I had that experience reading poetry.
Yeah.
And I still write poetry. That's one of my books is a book of poetry.
Really?
And it's a little embarrassing to be a poet, but
Oh no.
you know. But it was an interesting combination of playing football and being a poetry. That was something a little different.
Yeah.
I used to get, you know, ribbed about it by my teammates. Well, are you writing it? Are you still writing that poetry?
How was the process of writing a screenplay and writing poetry different? Were there similarities, or was it more different?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, writing a screenplay, I learned over a period of time, is mostly about putting the story together.
Yeah.
It's the structure of the story, and same with playwriting. I've now written 25 plays, and the experience in Hollywood really helped me as a playwright.
Oh yeah, I bet.
In terms of story structure.
Yeah.
Poetry, man, it's all over the place. I mean, you can do so many different things with poetry, and from, you know, formal verse, which I've done a fair bit of, to free verse, you know, and poetry that doesn't have a lot of rules, you know.
Right.
So it's all good, you know. Poetry has a whole vast, you know, expanse of possibility.
Yeah.
Screenwriting is more like being an architect
Yeah.
in a weird kind of way.
Yeah, that
you know,
makes
you
sense.
really don't have any time to waste, you know, and you've got 2 hours to tell the story, and so it's mostly about, you know, what's the most concise way to tell this story, you know.
Are you thinking about the cinematography aspect of it while you're writing the screenplay?
You are, but one of the kind of unwritten rules of screenwriting, and it's still true today, is don't tell the director or the cinematographer how to shoot the film. That's their job.
Right.
And when I first started out, I'd never written a screenplay, and I was a real rookie, and I got slapped in the face a few times for trying to tell a cinematographer how to shoot something. They don't want that from the screenwriter.
Yeah.
you
Did
know.
John Hughes, did he do cinematography work too?
John Hughes, he may have. I know
I know
he
he wrote everything.
wrote and directed. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I remember him, he was telling about how he could write a screenplay in, like, I think it was 2 days. He wrote Uncle Buck in 2 days because he was in control of everything.
Uh-huh.
He could kind of like cherry pick, so to speak, you know, what he was going to do with it.
Well, you know, if so to speak, yeah. If he was the director, he gets to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, Alfred Hitchcock, really, it was shot by shot with Alfred Hitchcock. You know, but he was Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're working for somebody, and you know there's going to be all these other creative people involved, the screenwriter's job is just to create the kind of bare bones
Yeah.
of the film.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. I kind of view it as poets focus on words and screenwriters focus on content, I guess. Would that be a good way to describe it?
Yeah, very much so. Content and
Structure.
and how to tell this story.
Right.
How to, you know, if you watch movies, you know, I always watch movies. I've just watched a couple in the last few days. I always watch movies with the thought of, how are they telling this story?
Yeah.
How is this particular story being told? I just went with my son to see Dune 2.
Okay.
Down in have y'all seen that?
Yes.
I haven't seen it yet. No.
You saw it? Okay. And that's what I was really interested in was, okay, how do you tell this big epic story? Kind of beat by beat.
Have you read Frank Herbert's Dune?
This is embarrassing, but I gave that to my son, who's now 26, and I had never read it. And of course, I catch for that from him.
Yeah, of course.
He's read the whole. Is it a trilogy? Or?
I think there's 5 books
Yeah.
now. I think 5 or 6 by him, and then his son wrote. a lot
Wow, is that
more.
right? Wow.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it goes on and on, but
Those sandworms, man.
I thought they did an excellent job with it. When you watch movies now, do you find yourself picking stuff out more that you've been in the industry?
Yeah, yeah, and also my girlfriend, whose name is Beth Henley, who lives in Los Angeles. She's in the film business. She's both a screenwriter and a playwright, and she's written a few films. She adapted her play Crimes of the Heart, which won the Pulitzer Prize, into a film, and that film, and she was nominated for an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Wow.
So I've actually, learned a lot from her, and she's coming to see the play.
Okay.
She'll be here.
Awesome.
She's seen it a few times before. Beth is my age and is a big name in the theater world, especially for all her accomplishments, in theater. She's had 3 plays on Broadway.
Wow.
She's done really well,
Yeah.
and she's just as humble and modest as she can be. All the people in the cast know her, and they really think it's great when she comes. Because she's so excited, when she comes and sees this play.
Yeah.
She loves it. It's unlike anything that she's experienced in theater, because it's kind of this weird community event. It's not just the fact that we're doing a play,
Yeah.
but it's the fact that everybody's so excited about it.
Right.
It's like the story of this community.
Absolutely.
The biggest story of this community.
Of course. Yeah.
Probably the most famous event in Carroll County history.
Yeah.
And what's neat about this place, this, you're where it happened.
That's
in the
right.
courtroom where it happened.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that are doing the play are descendants of people
who
that were there
involved.
during the event.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's just, it's really unique in that sense. When you're watching the play, I think I've seen it 2 times.
Wow.
It's just, you feel like you're there at some points.
You do, don't you?
Yes.
And so much of that, I think, is what you said. It's about being right here in the same space.
Yeah.
There's
a certain aura about it. I don't think you could recreate that energy if you did it
No.
on
Definitely
the
not.
stage.
You couldn't. I don't think. It's like going out to a graveyard at night.
Yeah.
Kind of. It's like, ooh boy, this is a little scary.
Yeah.
There's a certain
Yeah.
energy about it, though.
Well, the thing is, it is a fun play. It's exciting, but there is a certain solemnity to it where you do realize people did die here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, we were watching, and they're recreating that event. So it is kind of, I don't know. You do feel that kind of heft to it sometimes.
Yeah.
To kind of loop back a little bit.
Yeah.
So you were in Hollywood for 7 years.
7 years.
Can you take us through your 7 years there and kind of highlights of what you did and how you progressed through it?
It's a kind of story that is fairly common. So many people, young people like me, go out there, and when you're young and starry-eyed,
Right.
and these days most young people who come out there are out of film school. They've gone to film school somewhere.
Yeah.
That wasn't true for me, but the experience was 7 years of big ups and big downs. Hollywood is like a graveyard of disappointment. It's a place where dreams die, and often really, really beautiful dreams. And so many people, young people go out there and wind up feeling very discouraged about it, and leave. And in my case, I did pretty well. I had one movie come out that was like the #1 horror movie of the year it came out. that's really something. I mean, it didn't impress my parents. They were sort of appalled. You can imagine that. You wrote a horror movie? But if you live in LA and you're part of that culture, that's amazing to have done something like that. Yeah. But in 7 years, I never had another movie come out. I kept working jobs. I'd get hired to do stuff, and especially after that movie came out and did so well. But nothing would ever reach the finish line. Yeah. And in 1984, I brought cast and crew. I had written a screenplay that was set here in Grayson County, in Galax in Grayson County. And the entire cast and crew came here to start shooting this film.
Really? Wow.
And Dennis Hopper, who was, you ever seen the movie Easy Rider?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was one of those two guys on the motorcycle.
That's awesome.
And if you Google Dennis Hopper, he did a lot of really great stuff. He went all the way back to the movie Giant with Rock Hudson, way back. And Dennis came to Galax and was here for 3 weeks, and we got to be friends. And there were some other well-known actors who were here in the area. And then this financing that we had been counting on from these two investors, they pulled out. So we had to pack up our tents and go home. And so all the actors went back to Hollywood. Yeah. And the crew went back. And those kinds of disappointments are a big part of that business. You hear about the success stories, and I basically had one success story, which was that horror movie. You don't hear so much about all the people whose hearts get broken.
A couple months ago, we spoke with John Bernardo, and he went through the path that you outlined. He went to film school, he went to Hollywood, and he had a few jobs.
Yeah.
With the AFV, America's Funniest Home Videos, he was a producer on.
Yeah.
But he wanted to write something, and he would write several screenplays, and he would propose them, and they would get denied, proposed, denied, proposed, denied. And he finally had something, but then he says that someone stole it. And he says it just crushed him. So he kind of moved away from the film business, at least in Hollywood, and he's doing his own thing in Florida. But he definitely agrees that it's a land of heartbreak. It's not easy. It's very challenging.
Yeah. I think I go out every year and spend 2 months with Beth in L.A. I just got back 3 weeks ago from being out there. So, Beth's friends are movie people, a lot of them. And we just went to the house a few weeks ago. You ever seen the movie Willow? Never seen it? Ron Howard directed it. So we were at the house of the guy who wrote that movie. And, so her friends are people in the business, and, you just hear one horror story after another when you talk to them. I mean, they may have done pretty well, but she's close friends of Diane Keaton. I don't know if y'all know Diane Keaton. Diane Keaton was in a great movie called Annie Hall that was directed by Woody Allen. And she's, if you Google Diane Keaton, she's done a lot of great stuff. But so much disappointed. Yeah. However, I've got a horror film idea that I want to see if I can put together right here in Carroll County. Got to get you guys in the movie.
Okay, awesome. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I think we can do it pretty cheap.
Okay.
And I need some local people.
Yeah, we'd be honored.
We'd love to.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think we can do this. It's in the realm of possibility.
That'd be amazing.
I'd like to make another horror movie before I go 6 feet under. We hope that's not a horror movie. We'll find out, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Back to screenwriting, do you think that, I assume you studied the Bible during your divinity school and maybe other religious texts. Do you think that stories and plots of the Bible have influenced your screenwriting?
Yeah, I do. In fact, this movie, I wrote this horror movie, Parasite, with two other guys. And one of the guys, a guy named Alan Adler, was kind of a biblical scholar. Yeah. Especially, he's Jewish, and he sort of knows the Old Testament the best.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And Alan, was really fun to write with because he, like me, he knew the Bible. I mean, you can go around the planet and not find a better collection of stories than you find in the Bible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's probably the best storytelling ever done.
It influences so much. I mean, Ethan are big John Steinbeck fans.
Yes.
You got East of Eden,
yeah.
Okay.
Grapes of Wrath. I mean, all these
Wow.
biblical archetypes, you see.
Right.
Yeah. John Steinbeck. That's fantastic.
We read the Grapes of Wrath and we did a book review on it a couple
On
years
the podcast.
months ago.
Wow.
This series.
Wow.
It's
I'd love to hear that.
one of the best books I've ever read. It was wonderful.
Well, it's
Yeah.
just, you can see it throughout pop culture. I mean, it resonates everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
So much of your
It does. Yeah.
modern vernacular comes from the King James Version too.
Yes.
Like certain sayings, phrases.
it's
It's
very interesting. So,
the most influential text of all time, I would say.
yeah.
Without question.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the movie with Henry Fonda? If you ever get a chance, see the. I think that was John Ford. Who was a great American director
Okay.
who did a lot of westerns too. Often shot in Monument Valley. That was the setting for some of John Ford's westerns. But it's a good film. I mean, the book is great too. Like you, I read it in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, love to. You're going to make me want to read it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's worth it. It's
Yeah.
for sure. I love it.
Me and him realized a lot of John Steinbeck books don't end the happiest, but,
No,
Yeah.
but they're great.
the story it's just quality
Yeah.
through and through.
Yeah, and Steinbeck had a social consciousness
Yeah.
that makes him really remarkable. He was writing about the downtrodden so often.
He wasn't afraid to show the ugly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
and,
that-
and that's biblical.
Right. And it
That's
really is.
that's a big thing in the Bible. Is Jesus so often spoke about that. His ministry to the least of these in that phrase that's in the Bible. People who are really need help.
Yeah.
And Steinbeck was on the beat of American history too. That era of writers, I think, is really good. You got Fitzgerald talking about the lost generation.
Yes.
And the Roaring Twenties.
Yes. Right.
And then you see it's all go go go, and then Steinbeck talks about the Great Depression right afterwards.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a really light and dark, a yin yang
Right.
type thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to read them back to back is amazing.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. to see.
Fitzgerald and
Steinbeck.
right.
Yeah.
Steinbeck. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you went to Hollywood and you left.
Came back to Carroll County.
Yeah.
All right. Can you talk about from Carroll County to now?
Yeah.
Coming back to
Yeah.
Hollywood somehow.
So, I came back in 1986. My dad had a heart attack when he was 78 and was really not able to do much work. He had the orchard. So I came back with my wife. I was married at the time, and we moved from L.A. We more or less took over the orchard business. And that's been true since 1986. So it's a long time. A lot of years have gone by. I got real involved in Carroll County. I was 3 times president of the Chamber of Commerce when Carroll County had a Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
That was going on real strong in the 90s. I was 10 years on the Planning Commission in Carroll County.
Okay.
I decided I was on the Farm Bureau Board of Directors here in Carroll County for a long time. I decided it was really important to be active in this community where I live.
Right.
And I see this play as an extension of that,
Of course.
in terms of community involvement. In my mind, it's really important to have some kind of positive impact in the community where you live. That's become a really important idea for me.
Yes.
Not just be a writer, not just be a farmer, which is hard enough, both of them, but to actually try to make a difference where you live. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
And the people who are involved in this play, so many of them have also done that.
Of course. Yeah.
But many of them much more than I have, really. Yeah.
I think that sometimes a lot of people get really discouraged. There doesn't seem to be an emphasis on the importance of civic responsibility
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
anymore. But there's a lot of people in Carroll County that do still have that.
Yeah.
I think you see that with this play. I mean, people
Yeah.
do take pride in where they're from.
Of course.
Yes.
That's a perfect example.
Yes. And try to help,
Yes.
make things better if at all possible. That's something that we're counting on you young people to carry on, because
of course.
if you're not able to do that, we're in trouble.
Right. That's something we at least hope to achieve in some capacity with the podcast. We hope it's a resource for other people, and we hope it's an inspiration for other people to say, hey, these kids are doing it, we can do it too.
Yeah.
Just talking to people, realizing, people have stories here.
Right.
They do have stories, and the reason why we started the show is because most of the time they won't be able to tell those stories to people.
Yeah.
People just won't ask. So they won't tell. And we've had almost 60 people so far over the past year.
Wow, that's impressive.
And
That's really
local
impressive.
Going
people.
strong.
Yeah, and we've learned a lot from it too.
Yeah.
Because people around here, they do have a lot to say.
Yeah.
And they've been through these experiences. We're younger people, and we're just making our way in the world too. So to have that as an asset, to know these people, it's been really good for us. Really good.
Well, what a great thing to be doing.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
It's exciting. We've met amazing people.
And
Yeah, and the fact that y'all, at your stage in life, that y'all think that's a priority to be doing, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
thank you. And it does make you feel more connected to
yes.
the area.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of taken in by these people.
I've learned so
And
much
that's-
about history, the politics, culture of the area.
Yeah.
It's really awesome. See, and with the play too, I mean, the same thing's happening. So you're farming down on your orchard. You're also writing at the same time too. What does that look like? The dynamic between farming and producing, and well, I guess publishing novels or not books.
That's a great question. It looks like a lot of work.
Yeah, no kidding.
I do most of my writing at night,
Okay.
or really early in the morning, and writing is hard, man. I mean, so is farming, so is what y'all are doing. It's hard being young these days, right?
Yeah, it can be.
I mean, everything is hard,
Yeah.
So you have to, I think you have to develop some kind of way of accepting the fact that this is going to be hard. We try to put this play together, and it's always a new experience, and it's always really challenging to kind of embrace the fact that we're going to be here for 3 hours tonight,
right.
grinding away at it.
Yeah.
Combining farming and writing is great in a way, though, because when I'm out farming, working on the land, I'm often thinking about something I'm writing.
Yeah.
So that's I carry a little pocket notebook in my jeans pocket, and I'm constantly filling these notebooks with notes and ideas, and I'll come back home, 5 o'clock, and put on another hat, and I live by myself. My girlfriend lives in L.A., so we don't see each other that often. So it's me and 2 cats, and the 2 cats are trying to help me write,
Yeah.
just by being around.
Yeah.
A little inspiration.
I bet.
They say to never ask this, so I'm not going to ask where you get your ideas from. But
Who knows?
Do you write from more of a logical sense or from a more emotional sense?
Emotional, yeah. That's a great question. That's kind of the fundamental question about writing, and I've had to school myself to write from a rational sense, because and that's what screenwriting is. You have to figure out structure, whereas if you're writing from an emotional sense, you're not thinking so much about structure.
Yeah.
You're thinking about what's bothering somebody, or what their passion is, stuff like that. That's a wonderful question.
What emotion really drives you in your writing? Is there one particular emotion?
Yeah, I think it's changed a little bit as I've gotten older. When I was younger, I think it was yearning. Do y'all have a lot of yearning in you?
Yeah, I think so.
For something, it might be a dream you have.
Impactful, yeah.
Or it might be some beautiful girl you want to, start seeing. That's what my screenplay was about. That was set here in this area. Was about a young romance that involved bluegrass music.
Okay, yeah.
And so the lead characters are both in their early 20s. But at my age now, it's more about other things that have happened that make me emotional about things. Like this play.
Yeah.
This play is so much about what you lose when you defy the law and defy, kind of the humanity of other people. Floyd Allen, who I admire in many ways, saw himself as being above the law in Carroll County. He would say that openly. He behaved that way. He way before this shootout, he and some other people who we don't know who they were broke into the jail, a few hundred yards from here, and killed a guy who was a prisoner there. They shot him, pulled him out of his jail cell and shot him, and that was Floyd Allen, and he was never charged for it.
I didn't know that.
That there was never any charges because the law here in Carroll County was intimidated by him. So, you think about stuff like that at this stage in life, because we may not like the law, we may not agree with it, but it is the law. And if law breaks down, then we're in big trouble.
Society breaks down.
Big trouble.
Absolutely.
Has the reason why you write changed over time? And Luke kind of touched on this with emotion, and you mentioned it too. What emotion fulfills you? But is there a logical reason why you write? Is it just for pure pleasure, or is it because you want to produce something?
More the latter. I guess I've always felt a need to
Be working on something.
to be working on something that has some kind of impact. As a writer. And it's hard to do.
Yes.
But writers do have some clout. I mean, you talk about Steinbeck.
Oh, yes, of course.
And there's a great example of a writer who really made a difference, in the way we saw our country.
Yes, that's true.
And what a great thing, if you're able to pull that off. That's amazing.
Yeah, for the positive.
Do you see that happening in our modern day, in our modern age? Do you see writers like that now? Or do you think that's something of the past?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think sadly, for the most part, writers now are writing for a niche audience, for the most part. So they have an impact on that audience. But a writer like Steinbeck, was read by everybody. You know what I'm saying? Almost.
The thumb on that culture at that time. Kind of that, I guess, ride that wave, touch the nation, the time when they're going.
It still persists even today. That episode is one of our most listened to episodes, and it's not even an interview. We just talk about the book.
Wow.
And that just amazed me when I saw that.
It really speaks to people, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Writers dream of having a big impact, but it's unusual. I mean, honestly, a guy I really admire quite a bit as a writer is Stephen King, and he certainly had a big impact on people's imaginations.
Of course, yeah.
Salem's Lot is probably one of my favorite books
Is that right?
of all time. I love it. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's a strange guy, but he's obviously brilliant. And have you ever read? He wrote a book about the horror genre called Danse Macabre, which
I've heard of it.
which translates as the macabre dance, and boy, it's really good. He's such a smart guy.
Have you read On Writing?
Yes, I have. I've got that book. Really good, really good. What a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
Very
smart.
And so I guess you could say that he kind of has had an impact.
Yeah.
That's probably good.
Yeah. Getting people to read is also good too.
Yeah,
That's true.
But I mean, a lot of his stories have writers. Ben Mears in Salem's Lot, he's a writer. There is something romantic about the idea of a writer.
Yes. Misery.
Well, you look back in early American history and you hear about the founding fathers and how they wrote constantly. Especially Hamilton, where he wrote so much that
Jefferson.
Jefferson too.
Yeah.
And a lot of people romanticize that, and I know Luke and I do. So I think in some ways, and maybe in certain time periods, writing can be romanticized, but I think other times it probably could be pretty miserable, like you described.
Yeah. Well, misery is you push it to the extreme. Of the fan writer relationship.
Yeah.
You ever seen the movie? of that?
I've read the book. I've just not seen the movie.
Okay.
Kathy Bates she's a great actress, though.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
She is so scary.
Yeah.
When she breaks his feet.
Yeah.
In that.
I've seen that.
Oh man. Oh man.
There does seem to be certain emotions that are really transferable. I think loneliness is a big one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's very powerful.
Very powerful. Yeah.
Especially in movies, I think it's much easier to translate to the screen.
Yeah.
There just is some feelings that when an author, or I guess a director can translate that onto the screen, it's powerful. Sometimes people can't do it, but when it's done right, you can really, it's very impactful to see. And that kind of brings me to my question about the Carroll County Courthouse shooting play.
Okay.
What is it like making the play emotionally resonant, but also dealing with the hardcore facts? Because people know the story.
Yeah.
How's it like, putting that emotion into it while still trying to stay historically accurate?
Yeah.
And not being too inflammatory, because people will get worked up about certain topics.
Yeah, and to that point, the first time we did it, 12 years ago, there were sheriff's deputies
Right.
posted out here in the hallway. There was a lot of anxiety about how trouble might actually break out here. Amazing to think about. Boy, that's you hit it right on the head. People do know the story. They don't always know the whole story, which is really hard to know. Because so often they've heard stories coming down in their family,
Right.
which may or may not be too accurate.
Right.
And this is a play. In a play about a historical event, you have to imagine some things to make the play work that may or may not have actually happened. And there's a number of scenes you've seen the play that are like that. Where you try to get inside the minds of people.
Was it Floyd and his wife talking that night?
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the scenes have to
Yeah.
have some.
We don't really know,
Yeah.
about that. And honestly, we don't really know. There's still a deep mystery about the shootout. No one to this day knows who fired the first shot.
Right.
No one knows if there was a conspiracy on the part of the Allens, and Floyd and his son Claude were tried, convicted, and executed, but on the basis that they conspired to do this. And there's absolutely no evidence that they actually conspired to do that. But that's why they were executed, because this was all planned ahead of time. And so but it's possible they did. We don't know for sure.
Yeah.
It's very possible that Dexter Go, the clerk of court, fired the first shot. In fact, I now think that was probably likely. That having read all the court transcripts from the trials in Whitfield after this trial, and I think it's most likely, if you had to bet $1,000 on who fired the first shot, I would bet $1,000 on Dexter Go, who later became a big hero for having stood down the Allens. So, it's history, but history is the more you study history, the more you get deeper into it. Most times, and I was a history major in college, most times the more mysteries there are to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I guess sometimes you just have to be there.
Yeah. Right.
To really.
You do, and even if you were there, you would be
have to
interpreting
Yeah.
what's going on through your own filter, and that's what was happening here with this tragedy, is that people were making their own interpretations, and the guy I gotta say, the guy who has thought through all this the most carefully is Ron Hall. I don't know if you know his book, The Carroll County Courthouse Tragedy.
I've seen it.
But Ron put that book together when a lot of the people, when memories were still fresh,
Right.
From descendants of the people involved. And he took on the job of trying to do his own interpretation of what happened. And it's very very balanced, very objective, and a great read. It's it's a great read for anybody who likes a good story.
Yeah.
Ron just did a super job with that, and this play owes a lot to Ron. I mean, we departed a lot from some of the things in his book, but the basic foundation of trying to write a play, I was leaning pretty hard on Ron Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah. He would be a great guy to interview
We'd love to.
if you haven't done that already.
No, we haven't.
He would be a wonderful guy
Yeah.
to interview.
During the time of the shooting, I mean, it was national.
Of course,
news.
yeah.
Yeah.
Literally.
Was it the next week the Titanic sunk, or is that?
It was a few weeks.
Weeks later.
Yeah. It was. Let's say it would have been, I think, about a month.
Okay.
Close to a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoved it out of the news.
Yeah. That was a big story. Gosh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. That kind of knocked this story out of the water, so to
Yeah,
speak, a little
absolutely.
It makes me
Yeah.
wonder how much bigger it would have gotten if the Titanic hadn't sunk.
bit. Yeah.
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 Who knows?
Well, you need to begin to practice here in a
Okay.
minute, so we'll wrap up. We have a few questions we always ask.
Okay.
I'll let Ethan go first.
Yeah. What advice do you have to someone who's considering pursuing a career in farming or in writing? Or both, for that matter, like you have.
Wow. Well, in farming, probably the most important thing about farming is patience. A lot of bad things are going to happen in farming because of the weather, and just playing the long game, you might say. One year may be bad, but there's going to be another year. And honestly, the same advice for writing. Y'all were talking about the guy who had his ideas turned down. That's true in writing so often. My best-selling book, Simple Living, was turned down by 11 publishers before Viking Penguin in New York picked it up. And so
That's a pretty big publishing company too. So.
yeah, and my next book, which was Simon and Schuster, but if we had gotten out of heart after that 11th turn down, it never would have happened.
Right.
And so writing, you got to believe in yourself and read books. Read all kinds of books, because that's more than any other place, including a writing class, you learn how to write by reading. So be an omnivorous reader. That's really going to help you as a writer.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Great question.
Thank you.
My next question runs along the same vein as Ethan's. What advice do you have for young people just making their way in the world? Just starting out.
I've got a 26-year-old son who's working at the waste management plant in Mount Airy. You can imagine what that job is like.
Yeah.
But I'm so proud of him, because it's a good job working for the city of Mount Airy. My sense is y'all would know way better than I would that it's so hard right now for young people in so many different ways, that y'all could talk about. I honestly think, and this is an old man talking, maybe a little bit less social media would probably be good.
Yeah, I agree.
Just even 10% less. Read books more, do social media 10% less.
Yeah.
That would be a good thing, because books are the primary way, in addition to life experience, that we learn what the world is. And all kinds of books. Read books about science, and you'll have more mental capacity that way if you do that. And having mental capacity when you're young is a big thing. I mean, y'all are going off to college,
Yeah.
and that's the smartest thing you could do. You'll meet so many people from other parts of the world. At Virginia Tech, I mean, so many of those students are from overseas.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, especially tech.
And there's so much brain power in Blacksburg that's going to seep into your brain by being up there. Great thing. Go to school if you can. Yeah.
Our last question could be considered a bit of a cliche, but we believe that it's very indicative of a person's true character, so we like to ask it of every interviewee, and that is, what is the meaning of life to you?
Well, at this stage in life, y'all know about the Dalai Lama?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've studied Buddhism a fair bit,
Yeah.
both in college and in grad school. The Dalai Lama, who's still alive, amazing guy, if you ever read any of his books. He came to Harvard Divinity School and spoke.
Really?
And a student there asked him, what is the meaning of life? And he paused for a moment and he said, help people. So, can you think of a more beautiful answer than that?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Help people.
Of course.
So, man, I think there's probably more to it than that, but that's a big piece of it.
It's the foundation.
That's the foundation.
Well, Mr. Levering, it's been an honor to speak with you today.
Nice to speak with y'all. Thank you for including me.
Yeah. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you.